We are standing at the intersection of pop royalty and global K-pop domination, and honestly, the silence before the verdict is deafening. When Kelly Clarkson, a woman whose voice can literally shatter ceilings, decides to rank the vocal prowess of Stray Kids, it stops being a simple reaction. It becomes a definitive judgment. I've watched the footage, analyzing every subtle nod she gives, and I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew about technical hierarchy. It makes you wonder, in the eyes of a legend, does technical perfection actually beat raw, unpolished emotion? Before we tear this apart, make sure you're subscribed, and tell me in the comments, who is your personal #1 vocal king in this group? I really want to know if you agree with the queen, or if she got it wrong. Let's get into it. Number 8. Hyunjin. When the digital board flashed the name for the 8th position, the studio didn't just go quiet, it felt like the air was sucked out of the room. And I think we need to talk about why this placement feels so incredibly personal, almost like a misunderstanding of what modern pop artistry actually is. We are looking at Hyunjin, a man who defines the visual identity of Stray Kids, sitting at the bottom of Kelly Clarkson's vocal hierarchy. And honestly, this is where the clash between Western vocal pedagogy and K-pop's stylistic evolution crashes into each other with violent force. You have to understand the perspective here. Kelly comes from the school of Whitney, of Aretha, of chest-thumping resonance where the value of a singer is measured in decibels and lung capacity, so when she hears Hyunjin, she isn't hearing a bad singer. She is hearing a stylistic choice that sits completely outside her traditional wheelhouse. It makes me wonder, watching her face as she listened to his verses, was she looking for power that wasn't there? Or did she miss the fragile, haunting beauty that Hyunjin has spent years cultivating? There is a tragedy in being the visual of the group because people, even legends like Clarkson, tend to listen with their eyes first, assuming that because the face is perfect, the voice must be secondary, a mere accessory to the dance, and that is the bias I felt permeating this ranking. Watching the footage, you can see Kelly hesitating, her pen hovering over the list, and I believe that hesitation wasn't about a lack of talent, but about a lack of categorization she didn't know where to put. A voice that relies on breath, on texture, rather than sheer melodic athleticism. Hyunjin's voice is not a trumpet. It's a whisper in a crowded room. It's the friction of velvet. And for a powerhouse vocalist, that subtlety might register as weakness. But for us, the listeners who have drowned in songs like Cover Me, we know that his falsetto holds a pain that a perfect belt could never convey. I found myself getting genuinely frustrated during this segment, because it felt like judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree. She was looking for a specific type of resonance that Hyunjin rarely employs, ignoring the fact that his vocal color is arguably the most emotional in the entire group. Think back to his lines in their slower ballads. There is a trembling quality, a raw, unpolished edge that makes you feel like you're reading his diary. And isn't that the point of singing? To convey emotion? Yet, here he is at number 8. It brings up a massive, uncomfortable question about the music industry's definition of best voice. Are we ranking gymnastics, or are we ranking art? Because if we are ranking the ability to make a listener cry with a single breathy note, Hyunjin should be nowhere near the bottom. This placement feels like a relic of an old mindset, a refusal to accept that rap singing and air-dominant vocals are valid, difficult techniques that require immense control. I suspect Kelly was focusing heavily on stability during high-intensity choreography, where Hyunjin naturally sacrifices vocal power to execute those demonic body rolls. And maybe, just maybe, that's fair from a technical standpoint, but it stings. It stings because we have watched Hyunjin fight the Just a Dancer label for his entire career, putting in extra hours in the vocal booth, writing his own melodies, pushing his range in tracks that the general public ignores, only to be placed last when the spotlight turns on. There is a psychological weight to this number 8 spot. It's the spot that says, you are good, but you are not essential to the sound. And I vehemently disagree with that narrative. Without Hyunjin's tone, that slight nasal bite mixed with the airy softness, Stray Kids loses a crucial layer of their texture. He is the bridge between the aggressive raps of Changbin and the pop polish of Seungmin. I watched Kelly's expression change when she heard his falsetto in Taste. There was a flicker of surprise, a moment where I thought, she sees it! She finally sees it! But then the pen came down, and he was placed here. It feels like a dismissal of the idol style of singing, which prioritizes character over clarity. And let's be honest, there is a darkness to this ranking. A reminder that no matter how much you improve, first impressions in designated roles like main dancer act as a ceiling that is terrifyingly hard to break. I looked at the comments flooding in during the reveal, and the divide was instant, half the world nodding in agreement with the technical assessment, and the other half screaming that technicality is nothing without soul. Hyunjin is the soul. He is the drama. To place him at number 8 is to say that drama is less valuable than pitch, and in the world of entertainment, that is a dangerous statement to make. I also think we need to consider the song selection that Kelly was likely given. If she only heard the title tracks, where Hyunjin often growls or whispers, she never got the chance to hear the melody he carries in B-sides, and that is a failure of context, not a failure of the artist. It makes me angry, not at Kelly, but at the situation, at the limited window through which these global stars are viewed. They see the fashion, the hair, the dance, and they decide the voice is the weakest link before the song even starts. But listen closely to the pre-chorus of S-Class, or his verses in Red Lights. There is a seduction there that requires a mastery of tone that I argue is harder to teach than a high note. A high note is muscle. Hyunjin's tone is instinct. So, while number 8 flashes on the screen, and the world nods as if it makes sense, I am sitting here shaking my head, because this placement ignores the X factor, the unquantifiable magic that makes Hyunjin's voice stick in your head long after the technical powerhouses have finished their runs. It is a controversial start to the list, one that sets the tone for a ranking that I fear is going to prioritize the traditional over the experimental, and in the world of Stray Kids, the experimental is where the magic happens. This isn't just a ranking, it's a statement on what we value in music, and apparently, right now, we don't value the whisper as much as the scream. Number 7. Felix. If the previous ranking was a misunderstanding, this one feels like a direct collision of two completely different musical universes. And I have to admit, seeing Felix at number 7 made me physically recoil in my chair, not because it's wrong in a textbook sense, but because it exposes the massive, gaping blind spot that Western vocal elitism has towards the bass register. We are talking about Felix, a man whose voice is less of a sound and more of a geological event, a tectonic shift that happens every time he opens his mouth. Yet here he is, sitting near the bottom of Kelly Clarkson's list, and the frustration I feel is complex, layered, and honestly, a little bitter. You have to put yourself in Kelly's shoes for a split second to understand the logic, even if you hate the result. She is a vocalist who built her empire on the stratosphere, on the belts that pierce the clouds, on the agility of a soprano who can run up and down the scale like it's a playground. So when she encounters an entity like Felix, whose power lies in the subterranean depths, in the caverns where light rarely touches, she likely views it as a limitation rather than a superpower. I watched her eyes when the famous God's Menu line dropped. There wasn't the awe that we, the fans, usually feel, but rather a look of curiosity mixed with confusion, as if she was trying to figure out if it was a vocal effect or a biological anomaly, and that hesitation cost him points. But here is where I start to get angry, where the narrator in me wants to stop the tape and scream at the screen. Since when did best voice become synonymous with highest voice? This placement at number 7 feels like a systemic rejection of the lower register. A dismissal that says, unless you are straining your vocal cords to hit a high C, you aren't singing, you are just speaking with style. And that is an insult to the immense control Felix has cultivated. Think about the track Deep End, a song that I personally believe is a masterpiece of vocal isolation, where Felix strips away the growl and sings with a haunting, baritone clarity that sounds like a ghost trapped in a cathedral. Did Kelly hear that? Did the producers play her that clip? Because if she heard the fragility, the way his voice breaks and reforms in those lower octaves, there is no way, absolutely no way, she places him this low unless she is grading strictly on range versatility. And that's the trap. Felix is a specialist. He is a sniper in a world of machine gunners. He doesn't spray bullets everywhere. He hits one specific target, the soul, with a frequency so low it vibrates in your chest cavity before your ears even register the note. And to rank that impact at number 7 is to fundamentally misunderstand the purpose of a voice in a pop group. A voice is meant to be a signature, a fingerprint that cannot be replicated. And I challenge anyone, including Kelly, to find another human being in the industry who sounds like Felix. You can teach someone to belt. You can teach someone to support their breath. You cannot teach the biological miracle that is Felix's larynx. Seeing him here, just one step above the bottom, makes me question the criteria of these lists entirely. Are we judging uniqueness? If so, he is. Number 1. Are we judging emotional transfer? He is top tier. But if we are judging who can sound the most like a Broadway star, then yes, perhaps number 7 makes sense, and that is a boring, sterile way to consume music. I recall watching a reaction video once where a vocal coach explained that bass singers often struggle with pitch accuracy in the higher registers, because the sheer thickness of their vocal cords makes agility difficult. It's like trying to steer a cruise ship like a speedboat. And I wonder if Kelly picked up on that heaviness and penalized him for it. But isn't the heaviness the point? Isn't the weight of his voice what anchors the entire chaotic energy of Stray Kids? Without Felix, the group floats away. He is the gravity, the anchor, the black hole that pulls everything together, and to see that function ranked so low feels like a betrayal of the group's sonic architecture. I found myself staring at the screen, waiting for her to say, "But," to add a caveat, to explain that while he isn't a technical gymnast, he is a timbral god. But the list just moved on, cold and unforgiving. It brings up a psychological point about how we perceive cuteness versus sound. Felix looks like a fairy, like sunshine personified, and then that demon voice comes out. It's a cognitive dissonance that usually delights people, but maybe, just maybe, for a purist like Kelly, it felt like a gimmick. Gimmick! That is the word that haunts this ranking. The fear that the industry views his voice as a party trick rather than a legitimate instrument. And I think that is what hurts the most about number 7. It validates the critics who say, "Oh, he just talks low." It ignores the breath control required to sustain those notes without frying the vocal cords. It ignores the versatility he showed in Muddy Water, or the soft singing in Hero's Soup. It ignores the fact that he has been taking vocal lessons to expand his upper register, fighting against his own biology to be more than just the deep voice guy. This rank feels like a box. It feels like Kelly looked at him, labeled him, the rapper, bass, and decided that was a ceiling he couldn't break through. And I take that personally. I take it personally. Because in the dead of night, when you are listening to their discography, it isn't always the high notes you crave. It's that warmth, that enveloping darkness that only Felix can provide. It's the voice that says, "I am here, and I am solid." To rank solidity below agility is a choice, but it's a choice that leaves me feeling hollow. I wonder if Kelly knows that Felix was eliminated pre-debut because of this very issue, his struggle to fit into the standard K-pop vocal mold, and that he fought his way back in by proving that his uniqueness was worth more than conformity. Seeing him at number 7 feels like a flashback to those trainee days, a reminder that the world still struggles to know what to do with him. He doesn't fit the rubric. He breaks the grading scale. And maybe that's why he's here. Not because he's bad, but because he is unrankable. And in a forced ranking, the outlier gets punished. But let's be honest. Would we trade his voice for a generic tenor who can hit a high B-flat? Absolutely not. Not in a million years. So while he sits at number 7 on this screen, in the hearts of the listeners, he occupies a space that no number can quantify. It is a lonely spot. Number 7. A spot that suggests mediocrity. And Felix is anything but mediocre. He is rare. He is a unicorn. And it seems that even Kelly Clarkson, with all her experience, doesn't quite know how to price a unicorn in a market of racehorses. This is the moment in the list where I realized this wasn't going to be a celebration of color, but a rigid exam of mechanics. And for an artist like Felix, who paints with broad, dark strokes, that exam was never designed for him to pass. It's a shame. It's a missed opportunity to celebrate the bass. And as the segment ended, I just shook my head, listening to the echo of his voice in my mind, realizing that no matter what the number says, that sound is the one that shakes the floorboards. And you can't rank an earthquake. You just survive it. Number 6. Lee No. When the number 6 dissolved onto the screen and revealed the sharp, striking features of Lee No, I stopped breathing for a second, not out of shock, but out of a profound, simmering indignation that has been building up in the K-pop community for years. And seeing it validated here, on a global platform by a vocal titan like Kelly Clarkson, felt like a punch to the gut. We are looking at a man who is technically part of the vocal line. A man who has carried choruses, high notes, and bridges with a surgical precision that is terrifyingly consistent. Yet here he is, relegated to the bottom half of the list, stuck in the purgatory of good but not great. And I have to ask, what exactly are we listening for? This placement exposes a flaw in how we evaluate vocal talent when it comes packaged in a dancer-first rapper. Lee Know is the dance leader, the engine behind the choreography, and because of that title, there is this subconscious filter that people apply to his voice. They hear, dancer who can sing rather than singer who can dance. And I suspect that bias seeped into Kelly's ranking as well. Watching her reaction, I saw her nod during his parts, acknowledging the pitch, acknowledging the clarity, but there wasn't that spark of excitement, that lean-in moment that signifies she found a unique color, and that is where the tragedy lies. Lee Know's voice is not a warm blanket, it is a blade. It is cool, metallic, and incredibly precise. And in a world that often equates soul with warmth and rasp, his crystalline tone can be mistaken for being clinical or emotionless. But that is such a surface-level reading. I wanted to jump through the screen and play her Limbo, his solo track, that arguably holds one of the most difficult, sustained falsetto runs in their entire discography. If she had heard the desperation in that track, the way he scales the octave not with power but with a trembling, heartbreaking fragility, there is no universe where he sits at. Number 6. This ranking feels like a punishment for consistency. Lee Know is the member who rarely cracks, who rarely misses a step, who delivers a 9/10 performance every single time. And because he makes it look so effortless, because he doesn't grimace and sweat and strain to hit the notes, people assume it's easy. They assume he isn't working as hard as the ones who show the struggle. It is the curse of the perfectionist. When you make the impossible look routine, people stop clapping. I watched the chat replay during this segment, and the Stay fandom was in an uproar. Specifically, the Lee Know is a vocalist faction, and they are right to be furious. This is a man who opens songs like Levanter with a sweetness that sets the tone for the entire era, a man whose falsetto and taste adds a seductive, dangerous layer that practically carries the song's atmosphere. To rank him here suggests that Kelly was looking for something he doesn't offer. Maybe she wanted runs, maybe she wanted growls, but in doing so, she overlooked the value of a pure, unadulterated tone. There is a specific quality to Lee Know's voice that I find incredibly rare. It cuts through the mix like a laser. When Stray Kids songs get chaotic, with heavy bass and aggressive synths, it is Lee Know's voice that pierces through the noise to give you the melody, and that is a technical skill called placement that takes years to master. Did Kelly notice that? Or did she just hear a pop voice and move on? It makes me reflect on how Western vocal coaching often prioritizes big voices over agile ones in male singers. Lee Know has a higher tessitura. He is comfortable in ranges that would make other men strangle. But because he sings with a head voice dominance, it lacks the chesty oomph that a powerhouse like Kelly might be naturally drawn to. It's a clash of cultures, a clash of training. But let's go deeper. Let's talk about the psychological impact of this. Lee Know has always been the tsundere of the group, the one who pretends not to care, the one who packs his feelings away in a box, and his voice reflects that. It's guarded. It doesn't give you everything at once. You have to earn the emotion from him. And in a rapid-fire ranking session, where first impressions are everything, that guardedness is a liability. He doesn't scream, "Love me!" with his voice. He whispers, "I'm here." And sadly, in the loud world of entertainment, the whisper gets ranked number 6. I sat there, rewinding the clip, trying to find a flaw in his pitch that justified this, and I couldn't find one. He was pitch perfect. So, we are left with the uncomfortable truth that this is a ranking of taste, not skill, and Kelly's taste leans away from the bright, piercing tenor that Lee Know possesses. It's frustrating because we have seen him work so hard to shed the, just a visual, dancer skin. We know the story of his elimination, how JYP told him his vocals were lacking, and how he came back with a vengeance. To see him still sitting in the lower tier after all that evolution feels like a narrative stagnation. It feels like the world refuses to update its file on Lee No. Even the way the editors cut the clip felt dismissive, moving quickly to the next member as if there wasn't much to discuss. And that silence spoke volumes. It said, "He is solid," next. But being solid is the hardest thing to do. Being the backbone is the hardest job. I found myself getting defensive, wanting to list every live performance where his mic was the loudest, where he covered for other members, where he held the harmony together. This number 6 spot is the spot of the underrated. And while it's a badge of honor in some circles, it's a badge I am tired of seeing him wear. He deserves to be recognized as a main vocal contender, not just a sub-vocal who supports the others. The texture of his voice is the secret sauce of Stray Kids. Without his falsetto, the songs lose their ethereal quality. I think about Waiting for Us. Listen to his verse there. It's rich, it's full, it's emotive. Why didn't that count? Why does the ability to dance like a demon somehow subtract points from his singing score? It's the jack-of-all-trades penalty if you are too good at everything. People refuse to believe you can be a master of one thing. Lee No is a master of the upper register. He is a master of stability. And seeing him at number 6 makes me want to start a petition. Not to change the list, but to force the world to listen with their eyes closed. If you didn't know he was a dancer, if you didn't know he was a visual, and you just heard the audio of Limbo, would you still put him at 6? I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. And that hypothetical scenario is what haunts me about this segment. It proves that bias is inescapable, that we hear what we expect to hear. And sadly, for Lee No, the world expects a dancer, so they miss the singer standing right in front of them. This was the moment the list went from fun observation to contentious debate for me, because it highlighted a systemic undervaluation of a specific type of talent. Number 6 isn't bad, it's the middle of the pack, but for a voice that shines as bright as Lee No's, the middle feels like the bottom. And as the video transitioned, I was left with the echoing thought. One day, he is going to release a solo album that is going to make everyone, including Kelly Clarkson, look back at this list and wonder what on earth they were thinking. Until then, we just have to keep playing Limbo on repeat and knowing the truth ourselves. Number 5. Bangchen. Okay, stop the tape. Just pause it right there. We need to take a collective deep breath, because seeing Bangchen sitting at the halfway mark, squarely at number 5, is perhaps the most conflicting moment of this entire broadcast so far, and I can practically feel the tension radiating through the screen. We are looking at the man who literally built this group from the ground up, the man who handpicked every single member, the man who produces the songs, writes the lyrics, and arranges the harmonies. And yet, when stripped down to just the voice, Kelly Clarkson placed him here, right in the middle, and I am torn between understanding her logic and wanting to flip a table. There is a very specific tragedy to Bangchan's position in the industry, and it's the tragedy of the jack of all trades. Because he does everything, because he raps, dances, produces, leads, and hosts, we tend to take his vocals for granted. We treat his voice like the canvas upon which the other members paint, forgetting that the canvas itself is a masterpiece. Watching Kelly's reaction to his segments, particularly during the acoustic rendition of Waiting for Us, I saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes, that nod that says, okay, he knows what he's doing, but it lacked the jaw-dropping awe that she reserves for the power belters, and I think that's where the disconnect happens. Bangchan is not a belter, he is a stylist. He is an R&B crooner trapped in a K-pop leader's body. His voice has this distinct metallic sheen to it, a modern, processed quality that sounds incredible on a studio track, but can sometimes feel too perfect or too slippery to a purist ear like Kelly's. She comes from the era of raw, gritty soul, and Chan's voice is like liquid mercury, cool, precise, and infinitely adaptable. I wonder if she viewed his heavy use of stylistic auto-tune not as a crutch, but as an artistic choice, as a barrier to his real tone. There is a stigma there, right? The moment a singer uses vocal processing, the real singer police come out. And maybe, just maybe, Kelly couldn't see past the production wizardry to the raw talent underneath. But that is a mistake, because if you strip away the effects, if you listen to him singing in those late-night Chan's Room broadcasts where it's just him and a cheap microphone, you hear a tone that is warm, inviting, and incredibly secure. He has this Australian drawl that bleeds into his singing, bending vowels in a way that no other K-pop idol does, giving Stray Kids a westernized texture that is their secret weapon. Placing him at number 5 feels like a safe choice. A choice that says, he is good, he is reliable, but he isn't the star vocalist. And I have a major issue with that narrative. Chan is the chameleon. He changes his voice to fit the song. In Drive, he is seductive and relaxed. In Wolfgang, he is aggressive and feral. In I Hate to Admit, he is broken and vulnerable. This versatility is a skill. It is a massive vocal skill to be able to shapeshift. Yet in a ranking system, versatility often gets punished because it's hard to pin down a signature sound. I found myself staring at the number 5, thinking about the psychological weight this man carries. He often gives the best lines to Seungmin, the highest notes to Han, the killing parts to Felix or Hyunjin, effectively editing himself into the background of his own songs. Is this ranking a reflection of his own humility? Did he design the song so that he wouldn't stand out, and now he's being ranked based on that self-inflicted modesty? It's a paradox. The better he is at being a leader who uplifts others, the lower he ranks as an individual vocalist. And that hurts. It genuinely hurts to see the creator ranked below the potential of what we know he can do. I watched the comments section explode with the Chan is a vocalist, defense squad, and they brought up a valid point. His falsetto. It is pristine. It is light, airy, and controlled. When he hits those upper registers in the background harmonies, he is the glue holding the chord together. Does the glue ever get the credit? No. The shiny object gets the credit. And Kelly, for all her genius, was looking for the shiny object. She missed the glue. There is also the matter of stamina. Bang Chan performs these concerts like a marathon runner, singing live while jumping 5 feet in the air, and his stability is terrifyingly good. But stability isn't sexy in a ranking video. Stability is boring. Stability gets you number 5. Risk-taking gets you number 1. And Chan, as the leader, cannot afford to take risks that might derail the performance. He has to be the safety net. So, he sings within his pocket, he executes perfectly, and he gets a mid-tier rank. It's unfair, but it's the reality of his role. I wanted to hear Kelly talk about his lower register, which is surprisingly rich, or his ability to switch from rap to vocals instantly. But the segment moved on too fast. It felt like a participation trophy placement. Here is the leader, he's great, moving on. And that dismissal of his artistry is what grinds my gears. We are talking about the man who wrote Don't Want to Acknowledge, I Hate to Admit. A song so raw and painful that he barely performs it because it tears him apart. If Kelly had heard that song, just him and a piano, screaming his insecurities into the void, there is no way he stays at. Number 5. He shoots up to the top 3 instantly. But she likely heard the pop hits, the polished title tracks, and made a judgment based on the produced Bang Chan, not the raw Christopher. It's a reminder that these rankings are always context-dependent, always flawed by the sample size. But still, seeing the man who is the literal voice of the group's identity sitting in the middle, it leaves a bitter aftertaste. It makes you realize that sometimes, being the one who holds everyone else up means you're the one who gets overlooked when people start looking up. Number 5 isn't an insult, but for Bang Chan, it feels like a misunderstanding of his value. He isn't just a singer, he is the atmosphere. And how do you rank the air? You don't. You just breathe it. But apparently today, we are ranking the air, and we are calling it average. And that, my friends, is the tragedy of being the best leader in the game. You win the war, but you lose the battle for the spotlight. Number 4. Changbin. If you needed definitive proof that Kelly Clarkson is judging this list with her ears and not by the rulebook of K-pop positions, this is it. This is the smoking gun. And frankly, I am absolutely living for the chaos that seeing Changbin at number 4 is about to unleash on the internet. We are looking at a man whose official title is main rapper. A man who is known for machine gun delivery and aggressive, spitting bars, yet here he is, sitting comfortably in the top tier of a vocal ranking, beating out members who are designated vocalists. And I have to tell you, this is the moment where I gained an immense amount of respect for Kelly's intuition. Why? Because she heard the pain. She heard the texture. In a world of polished, auto-tuned perfection, Changbin's singing voice is like raw sandpaper dragging across a violin string. It creates friction, it creates heat, and it creates a sound that is impossible to ignore. I watched her face when she reacted to his verse in Streetlight. There was this widening of the eyes, this realization that she wasn't listening to a rapper trying to sing, she was listening to a vocalist who chooses to rap. There is a massive difference. The placement of Changbin at number 4 validates a theory I have held for years, that technical prettiness is often overrated compared to emotional weight, and Changbin's voice is heavy. It carries the weight of the world. When he sings, he doesn't just hit the note, he attacks it. He sings with a chest-dominant open-throat technique that gives him incredible volume, arguably the loudest projection in the group, and for a powerhouse singer like Kelly, that volume equates to confidence. She respects the power. She respects the fact that he isn't hiding behind breathiness. But let's dig deeper into the psychology of this rank, because it disrupts the hierarchy. Usually, the rapper sits at the back during the ballads, maybe adding a low harmony or a spoken word piece. But Changbin refuses that narrative. He steps to the front, grabs the mic stand, and belts with a rock ballad quality that sounds like it belongs in a generic 2000s emo band. And I mean that as the highest possible compliment. It's visceral. It's nostalgic. It makes me wonder if Kelly heard echoes of her own rock influences in his tone. There is a gravel in his voice, a rasp that you cannot teach in a classroom. You have to be born with those thick vocal cords, or you have to scream until you develop them, and Changbin sounds like he has done both. I found myself cheering at the screen because this number 4 spot is a victory for the unconventional voice. It says that you don't need a crystal clear tenor to be considered best. You just need to make the listener feel something. And Changbin makes you feel everything. Think about his cover of Tomorrow. The way he navigates the melody is surprising, almost jazz-like in its phrasing. And I suspect Kelly picked up on that musicality. Rhythmic precision is a rapper's toolkit, and when you apply that rhythmic precision to singing, you get a vocalist who never drags, who never rushes, who hits every pocket of the beat with surgical accuracy. That is what separates him from the pack. But there is also a darker, more reflective side to this ranking. It highlights how much we pigeonhole these artists. By labeling him rapper, we subconsciously lower our expectations for his singing. So when he delivers a vocal performance that is merely great, we treat it like it's a miracle. But is it a miracle? Or is Changbin just a phenomenal musician, period? I think Kelly saw past the label. She didn't know he was the dark rapper of the group. She just heard a guy singing his heart out with a tone that cut through the mix like a chainsaw. And to rank that above the sweet falsettos and the smooth ad-libs of the previous members is a bold, controversial statement on what matters in music. It says, "Give me the grit." It says, "Give me the struggle." I also think about the stability factor. Changbin is a tank, physically and vocally. He has a core strength that allows him to sustain notes even while moving, and that reliability is something a veteran performer like Clarkson would value highly. He doesn't wobble. He doesn't fade out. He commits, and in an industry full of airy, half-whispered vocals, a full-chest commit is a rare commodity. I remember watching a live encore stage where the backing track failed, and everyone was a little shaky, but Changbin's voice boomed through the stadium. Totally dry, totally pitch perfect, and that is the moment you realize he isn't just a studio creation. He is a live weapon. Seeing him at number 4, just outside the podium, creates a fascinating tension for the top 3. It means the remaining spots are reserved for the absolute elite, the ones who blend this power with technical mastery. But honestly, in terms of pure stank face factor, that face you make when a note is just too good, Changbin might actually be number 1. He has the soul of a rocker, and I think that's what this ranking is really about. It's about recognizing that the lines between rapper and singer are dissolving, and Changbin is standing in the rubble of those walls, screaming at the top of his lungs. It's a triumphant moment for him, a moment that says his duality isn't a gimmick, it's a legitimate artistic threat. The only reason he isn't higher, I suspect, is the range ceiling. He doesn't live in the 5th octave like the others might, but for everything below that ceiling, he is the king. I sat back in my chair, listening to the snippet of his voice. They played a haunting line from a B-side, and I realized that if Changbin released a rock album tomorrow, it would outsell everything. Kelly Clarkson knows it. I know it. And now, Looking at this, number 4 on the screen, the whole world has to acknowledge it. He is the dark horse who just overtook the favorites, and it is glorious to witness. This isn't just a rank, it's a revelation.
Number 3. E&A. If you are looking for the moment where the script got flipped, where the hierarchy of age and experience was completely dismantled by the sheer undeniable force of growth, this is it. Seeing the youngest member, the maknae, Yang Hyunjin, better known as I.N, sitting proudly at. Number 3. Standing on the podium above the main rappers, above the dance leader, and above the group's producer, is a narrative twist that feels like the climax of a cinema masterpiece. I literally gasped. I gasped because this isn't just a ranking placement. This is a vindication. This is an apology letter from the universe to the 16-year-old boy who once cried in a practice room, terrified that his voice wasn't good enough to let him debut. To see Kelly Clarkson, a vocal titan who knows exactly what it takes to survive in a cutthroat industry, place him in the top 3 is a moment that validates years of silent, grinding struggle that often goes unnoticed behind his blinding smile. When his name appeared, I felt a lump in my throat, not out of sadness, but out of an overwhelming sense of pride that I suspect every long-term fan is feeling right now. We have to talk about the quality of his voice because it is arguably the most distinct pop texture in the group. I.N does not sound like anyone else. He has a tone that I can only describe as crystalline. It is sharp, it is bright, and it pierces through the heavy, distorted bass of Stray Kids music like a beam of light cutting through fog. Kelly clearly responded to that clarity. In her world, where diction and brightness are key to cutting through a radio mix, I.N's voice is a dream. It has a natural resonance that sits high in the nasal cavity, giving it a metallic ring that is impossible to drown out. You could put him in a choir of 100 men, and you would still hear that unique, almost trot-like vibrato that he carries from his childhood. And that's the secret weapon, the trot influence. I watched Kelly's face during his verse in Thunderous. She tilted her head, intrigued by the way he bent the note at the end of the phrase. It's a technique that is very Korean, very traditional, yet he applies it to modern hip-hop tracks, creating a fusion that is weirdly addictive. I wonder if Kelly realized that she was listening to a genre-bending vocalist, or if she just thought, wow, that kid has style. Either way, it worked. But the real story here, the one that makes this number 3 spot so heavy with emotion, is the trajectory of his confidence. We are looking at a vocalist who spent the first few years of his career literally singing with metal braces on his teeth. Do you understand the physical difficulty of that? Trying to project, to articulate, to maintain perfect pitch while metal wires are cutting into the inside of your cheeks. It created a lisp, a hesitation, a barrier between him and the microphone. But when those braces came off, it was like Rock Lee dropping the weights in Naruto. His voice exploded. It became powerful, agile, and terrifyingly stable. I suspect Kelly was shown clips from the more recent eras, specifically S-Class or La 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 La, where I.N isn't just singing. He is attacking the track with a swagger that screams, I belong here. There is a specific moment in Hall of Fame where he flips into a falsetto and then crashes back down into his chest voice that I think sealed the deal for this ranking. It showed agility. It showed that he isn't just the cute one anymore. He is a vocal technician. But why number 3? Why not higher? Why not lower? I think number 3 is the perfect spot for the unique color vocalist. He doesn't have the sheer lung capacity of the member at number 1, nor the stylistic flexibility of number 2, but he has the signature. He is the voice that makes a song sound like a Stray Kids song. If you take I.N out of the chorus, the brightness disappears and the song becomes too dark, too heavy. He provides the balance. I found myself thinking about the psychological impact this ranking must have on him. He has always been the one receiving feedback, the one looking at his older brothers for approval, asking, was that okay? Did I do well? To have a global superstar like Clarkson say, you are one of the best, essentially tells him that he doesn't need to ask for permission to be great anymore. He has arrived, and for the audience, it's a wake-up call. We often baby the youngest members. We treat them like mascots. This ranking slaps that notion out of our hands. It forces us to listen to him as a man, as an artist, as a powerhouse. I remember the days of the survival show, watching JYP criticize his vocal stability, telling him he was the weak link. That footage is burned into my brain. Now, compare that to this moment. The weak link has become the anchor. The boy who was almost eliminated is now standing on the podium. It is the ultimate underdog story, and I think that narrative bleeds into his voice. There is a hunger in his singing now, a desperate need to prove himself that gives his vocals an edge, a bite. He isn't singing to be pretty, he is singing to survive, even though he's already made it. That tension is palpable. I also want to touch on his range. IN has quietly developed one of the most reliable upper registers in the group. He handles the pre-choruses, the parts that build the tension, and that requires a very specific type of vocal control called dynamic scaling, where you have to start soft and get loud without cracking. It's harder than it looks. Kelly, as a master of dynamics, likely spotted this immediately. She knows that the person singing the build-up is often doing more work than the person singing the drop. So, giving him the bronze medal here is a nod to the hard worker of the melody. I watched the reaction from the other members in my head. I imagined Bang Chan smiling like a proud dad, knowing that his tough love paid off. I imagined Seungmin nodding, acknowledging a worthy rival. This number 3 spot disrupts the internal hierarchy of the group in the best way possible. It proves that talent is fluid, that you can improve, that you can surpass your teachers. It is a dangerous rank, in a way, because it sets a new standard. Now, every time N opens his mouth, we expect top 3 quality. We expect perfection. And looking at his recent live performances, where he swallows CDs for breakfast, I think he is ready for that pressure. There is also something to be said about his fox persona, sly, sharp and unexpected. His voice shares those traits. Just when you think he's going zig, he zags. Just when you think he's going to sing a soft ballad note, he hits it with a piercing belt. That unpredictability is exciting. It keeps the listener on their toes. And in a ranking that has been full of surprises, placing the maknae in the elite tier is the best surprise of all. It challenges the seniority rule of K-pop. It says that talent knows no age. It says that if you work hard enough, you can turn your biggest weakness into your greatest strength. N is the living proof of that. So as I stare at the number 3 on the screen, I don't see a rank. I see a timeline. I see a journey from tears to triumph. And honestly, if he keeps improving at this rate, the next time someone makes this list, he might just be coming for the crown. The baby bread has become the main course, and the world is finally ready to eat. This is, without a doubt, the most satisfying placement on the list so far. It feels earned, it feels right, and it sounds absolutely beautiful.
Number 2. Han. This is the moment where the entire system crashes, where the conventional rules of K-pop positions are taken out back and dismantled piece by piece, because seeing Han Jisung, officially a main rapper, sitting at the number 2 spot in a vocal ranking is the kind of industry-breaking chaos that I live for. I stared at the screen, jaw unhinged. Not because I didn't believe it, but because seeing a vocal legend like Kelly Clarkson validate what the fans have been screaming for years feels like a massive cultural victory. We are looking at a prodigy. There is no other word for it. We are looking at a man who can spit fire at breakneck speeds, and then, without taking a breath, switch into a high note that rivals the best vocalists in the business. And to see him placed here as the runner-up for the title of Best Voice is a testament to sheer, unadulterated talent over training. Usually, when a rapper sings, there is a grading curve. We say, oh, he's good for a rapper. But Kelly didn't grade on a curve. She graded him as a vocalist, period. And he decimated the competition. I watched her reaction during the clip of I'll Be Your Man, that legendary performance on Kingdom, where Han took the impossible high note that was originally sung by BTOB's Yoonkwang. I saw Kelly's eyes widen, Her hand instinctively go to her chest, and in that split second, she realized she wasn't dealing with a part-timer. She was dealing with a master. The texture of Han's singing voice is fundamentally different from the rest of the group. It is warm, it is round, and it is incredibly resonant. Unlike the sharper, brighter tones we heard earlier in the list, Han's voice carries a soulful weight that sounds like it has been soaked in whiskey and heartbreak. It's a storyteller's voice. When he sings, even if you don't speak a word of Korean, you understand the pain, you understand the desperation, and for a singer like Clarkson, who values emotional transfer above all else, Han is catnip. He is the artist who bleeds into the microphone. I think about his solo track Alien or Miserable songs where he isn't just hitting notes. He is navigating a psychological landscape, using his voice to crack, to waver, and to soar in ways that feel dangerously intimate. Placing him at number 2 is a statement that expression is just as valuable as perfection. It brings up the massive conversation about the ace title. In K-pop, we throw that word around loosely, but Han is the definition of it. He is the anomaly who could debut as the main vocalist in any other group, yet he chooses to rap. That choice gives his singing a unique rhythmic quality. His phrasing is impeccable because he understands the beat on a molecular level. He knows exactly where to place the emphasis to make the lyric hit the hardest. Did Kelly notice that jazz-like improvisation in his runs? I think she did. I think she heard a kindred spirit, someone who treats the voice as an instrument of freedom, not just a tool for hitting targets. But let's get into the controversy, because I know there are purists out there screaming, how can a rapper be number 2? And my answer is, close your eyes. Forget the titles. Listen to Winter Falls. Listen to the bridge in Secret Secret. His range is terrifying. He has a supported belt that goes higher than some of the designated vocalists. And because he approaches it with the fearlessness of a rapper, he hits those notes with a raw attack that is thrilling to watch. There is no hesitation in Han. He jumps off the cliff and builds his wings on the way down. This number 2 spot also highlights a very specific vocal color that Western audiences love, the tenor with a baritone soul. He can go high, but he never loses that rich, chesty bottom end, which keeps his voice sounding full even in the stratosphere. I found myself getting emotional thinking about the journey of Han Jisung, the boy who struggled with anxiety, who used music as his shield, and now, that shield has become a sword that is recognized by one of the greatest singers in the world. It's a validation of his vulnerability. He doesn't sing to be pretty, he sings to survive. And that fight-or-flight energy is palpable in every recording. I suspect Kelly Clarkson, who has her own history of fighting for her artistic voice, resonated deeply with that quality. She likely heard the cry in his voice, that natural rasp that comes out when he pushes hard, and identified it as the mark of a true artist. It's interesting to compare him to the members ranked lower. While they might have more polished techniques or specific niches, Han has the X factor. He has the unpredictability. You never know what he's going to do. Next, is he going to growl? Is he going to falsetto? Is he going to scream? That danger keeps you hooked. Number 2 is the spot of the challenger, the one who is breathing down the neck of the champion. And honestly, on any given day, Han could easily be number 1. It just depends on what you're looking for. If you want pristine, crystal-clear technique, maybe he's second. But if you want a performance that rips your heart out and stomps on it, he is the king. I also want to talk about his stability. Because he is a rapper with insane breath control, he can hold long, sustained notes while dancing without wavering. That is a physical feat that is often overlooked. His diaphragm is made of steel. Seeing him ranked this high forces the industry to rethink how they categorize talent. It proves that the main vocalist badge is just a label, and talent transcends labels. I looked at the comments section, and it was a war zone of agreement and disbelief. People shocked that their bias who usually raps was recognized for his singing, and others arguing that it's unfair to the actual vocal line. But is it unfair? Or is it just the truth? The truth is, Han's voice is a phenomenon. It's a gift, and to suppress it or rank it lower just because of his position would be the real injustice. Kelly didn't make that mistake. She heard the music, not the marketing. And in doing so, she gave Han the respect he has earned 10 times over. I sat there, rewinding his part in Volcano, listening to the way he slides between notes, and I realized that this is the future of pop music genre. Less, borderless, and limitless. Han represents that future. He is the hybrid. And number 2 is a glorious, thunderous acknowledgement of his power. It sets the stage for the final reveal. But honestly, even if the list stopped here, Han has already won. He has proven that you don't need to stay in your lane if you own the whole highway. It is a brilliant, inspired choice that adds a layer of depth to this ranking that I didn't expect. It makes you realize that in Stray Kids, the bench is just as deep as the starting lineup, and the guy you thought was the Joker is actually the ace up the sleeve. What a moment. What a voice. Number 1, Seungmin. And here we are. The dust has settled, the debates have raged, and the silence has fallen, only to be broken by the clearest, most undeniable sound in the entire Stray Kids discography. When the final image appeared on the screen, revealing Kim Seungmin at the absolute pinnacle, at the number 1 spot of Kelly Clarkson's ranking, I didn't gasp, I didn't scream, I simply nodded. I nodded with the deep, resonating satisfaction of seeing the universe finally align perfectly, because this placement isn't just a win for Seungmin. It is a victory for the very concept of the vocalist, in an era that is increasingly obsessed with performance over pitch. We are looking at the main vocalist, the man who carries the title, and for once, the title isn't just a formality, it is a definition. To see Kelly Clarkson, a woman who possesses one of the most dynamic and powerful voices in modern music history, crown Seungmin as the king of this list, is the ultimate validation of a specific kind of artistry, the artistry of consistency, of technique, and of an unwavering dedication to the craft of singing. I watched Kelly's face during his segment, and it was different from the others. With Han, she was excited. With Felix, she was intrigued. But with Seungmin, she was settled. She leaned back in her chair with a look of pure relief, the kind of look one professional gives another when they realize, finally, someone who speaks my language. That language is the language of breath support, of resonance placement, and of effortless transitions between chest and head voice. Seungmin's voice is not a firework that explodes and fades. It is a laser beam. It is continuous, focused, and burns with a steady intensity that cuts through everything. Why is he number 1? It's simple. He is the spine. In a group that is famous, or infamous depending on who you ask, for its noise music, for its chaotic, aggressive, high-energy soundscapes, Seungmin provides the melodic structure that keeps the entire building from collapsing. He is the one who grounds the chaos. When the rappers are sprinting and the synths are blasting, Seungmin steps in with a chorus that is so melodic, so pristine, that it resets your ears. It's a psychological cleansing. Kelly clearly recognized this function. She heard the way his voice acts as the home base for the listener. There is a texture to his voice that I find absolutely fascinating. It has a slight nasal quality, but not in a bad way. It's a stylistic placement that allows him to project his voice with incredible power, without straining his throat. It's a technique often used in musical theater, and it gives his tone a regal quality. He sounds expensive. He sounds like he's singing in a suit even when he's wearing streetwear. I want to talk about the love poem performance, which was undoubtedly the moment that solidified his reputation in the industry. Even if Kelly only saw a snippet of that cover, or perhaps his opening in I'll Be Your Man, she would have heard the emotional intelligence he possesses. Many singers can hit high notes. Very few can hit a high note and make it sound like they are crying. Seungmin does that. He has this tearful quality in his upper register, a desperate, reaching sound that tugs at the heartstrings in a way that is almost manipulative. He knows exactly how to break your heart with a single vowel change. That is mastery. That is number 1 behavior. But there is another layer to this ranking that I think is crucial to discuss. The work ethic. We all know the stories of Seungmin keeping a vocal diary, of him singing with a mask on to protect his throat, of him staying behind in the practice room long after everyone else has left. He treats his voice like an athlete treats their body. He is obsessed with improvement. And I believe that obsession bleeds into the recording. When you listen to him, you don't hear talent in the raw, messy sense. You hear refined skill. You hear thousands of hours of scales. You hear the discipline. Kelly Clarkson, as someone who has toured the world and performed night after night, values stamina and reliability above almost anything else. She knows that being the best isn't about hitting a G5 once in the studio. It's about hitting it every single night. Rain or shine, sick or healthy. Seungmin is that soldier. He never misses. He is the iron vocal cords of the group. To rank him first is to respect the grind. It is a rejection of the flashiness of the moment in favor of the longevity of the career. I found myself thinking about how Seungmin often gets overshadowed by the visual intensity of Hyunjin or the deep voice of Felix in the general public's eye. He is the dandy boy, the quiet one, the polite one. But this list strips away the image and focuses strictly on the audio. And when you close your eyes, Seungmin is the giant. He towers over the track. His range is deceptively massive. He can go low, rich, and warm, and he can climb into the stratosphere with a mixed voice that is the envy of many idols. I specifically thought about his work on OSTs, original soundtracks. That is a solitary arena. In an OST, you can't hide behind a rap verse or a dance break. It's just you and the melody. Seungmin shines there. He carries entire emotional narratives on his own, proving that he doesn't need the group to be a star. He chooses the group. And that distinction matters. Number one isn't just a rank, it's a responsibility. It means that when the critics come for Stray Kids, saying they are just noise or performance idols, we point to Seungmin and say, no, we have a world-class vocalist right here. He is the shield against the criticism that K-pop lacks real singers. He is the proof. I watched the comments section flood with tears, literal digital tears, from fans who have waited so long for him to get this specific kind of recognition from a Western legend. It feels like a graduation. The puppy has grown into the king. There is also a beautiful contrast between him and Han at number 2. Han is the wild card, the emotional explosion. Seungmin is the controlled burn. The fact that the controlled burn one tells me that at the end of the day, mastery of one's instrument is the ultimate trump card. Kelly chose the technician who puts his soul into the technique, rather than the soul who uses technique as an afterthought. It's a purist's choice. It's a vocalist's choice. And I respect it immensely. I also love that this challenges the stereotype that the main vocal in a rap-heavy group is just a utility player. Seungmin is not a utility. He is the main event. Listen to Secret Secret again. Listen to how he navigates the falsetto in the chorus. It's like he's walking on a tightrope made of silk. It's breathtaking. Or the power he unleashes in the final chorus of Levanter. It's anthemic. He has the voice of a protagonist. And finally, standing here at the end of the list, seeing his name at the top, I feel a sense of calm. The universe is in order. The main vocalist is number 1, but it's not because of the title. It's because he fought for it. He wrestled with his own voice. He tamed it, and he polished it until it blinded us all. Seungmin represents the idea that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. But in his case, he has both. He is the talent that works the hardest. And that is an unbeatable combination. Kelly Clarkson saw it. We see it. And now, it is written in stone. Kim Seungmin is the voice of Stray Kids. He is the golden standard. And as the screen faded to black, leaving that number 1 burned into my retinas, I realized that this wasn't just a list. It was a love letter to the art of singing. And there is no one better to receive that letter than him. So, to the dandy boy with the monster voice, long live the king. This list has been a roller coaster, a chaotic journey through bass drops and high notes, but it landed exactly where it was supposed to. Perfection. Absolute perfection.